So it's after 7 o'clock, so we'll call the Coos Bay City Council meeting to order. Everything seems to be working, so would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you, everyone. So the first item on the agenda this evening is going to be in the administration of oath of office for Carmen Matthews, who is virtual. So Nicole?
Yes. Counselor Matthews, if you will repeat after me. Hopefully you can hear me well. Yes.
I can.
Okay. So I state your name.
I, Carmen Matthews,
Do solemnly swear that I will support
do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America
and the state of Oregon
and the state of Oregon
and the city charter and ordinances of the city of Coos Bay,
and the city charter and the ordinances of the city of Coos Bay,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully and lawfully perform the duties of counselor
faithfully and lawfully perform the duties of counselor
for the city of Coos Bay
for the city of Coos Bay
during my continuance therein,
during my continuance therein,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you're official, Carmen.
All right. I'm in.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is public comment. So at this time, you would come forth, we'd ask you to come forth and make a comment of something that's not on the agenda. I see a lot of you have signed up for the flag policy, which is on the agenda, and I will make sure that everyone has time to speak if they wish. Even if they didn't sign up, they'll have time to speak. And also, there's a towing policy that we're going to be addressing, so that also is on the agenda. So and I see a couple that are alley issues. So Wayne and Brian, if you want to come and talk about the alley issues, and if there's anyone else that want to come up and speak, we'll have you come up after that. So who wants to go first? Just give us your name and address, or where you reside, what city.
Yes, hello, my name is Brian Hampton. My address currently is 142 South Cammon Street in the Empire District of Coos Bay. I've got my business, my commercial shop, and my living situation is in the same building right now. I purchased a property back in 2003, built the building in 2008, remodeled it for the living quarters in 2016. Anyway, I've been using this alley for about 20 years and been trying to be a good neighbor. I'm the one that fills the potholes. I think City of Coos Bay is graded at one time in 20 years. I haven't had to add anything to it, which is no big deal. I don't mind doing that. But we had a property on the corner. It's a funny little alleyway. It forms a T. One part of the T is not hasn't been developed. So it's like a upside down L, I guess. I actually have some pictures here, but I don't think we really have time for that. But anyway, new property owner on the corner purchased a property about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. And went up, introduced myself, was friendly, hauled some garbage out for him, trying to be a good neighbor. Just last week, he decided that because of how the corner is on that part of the alley, that we were driving over his piece of property. I do it maybe once a day at the most. But he blocked the entire alleyway off. And at one point, I'm not sure how it got called. Police got called. My wife was driving down there, and he stood in front of my wife's car and wasn't real friendly with her. Police moved the bales, told him to get out of the way, and she went on her way. I'm not looking to be to get in an argument with anybody or whatnot. I'm just trying to keep access to my business. It's been long-standing. I'm willing to work with him somehow or another, but it's come to the point now where I can't even talk to the guy. Mr. Toppitz here has this similar issue, and this is basically his only access to his piece of property. I can access it from the other side of the alley, but if I bring a trailer or something, I've got to back like probably about 100 feet I've got to back a trailer down the alley about 100 feet. So anyway, just bringing it to the council's attention and just begging for a little bit of help. You know, I want to do the right thing. I want to be a good neighbor, but I still need access to my business. Otherwise, it just makes it really hard. So that's it.
So Brian, after you have had the police come out and talk to him,
I didn't have the police come out. Somebody else did.
somebody else did,
Yes.
but he is still continuing to block the alley, is what you're saying?
The hay bales are still there, but they're out of the alleyway. I've just tried to not go down there. I didn't, wouldn't want to cause a fuss or anything like that.
So it
but
impedes the access to the alley?
it will impede the access, and
Okay.
I see it as a continuing problem.
Okay.
So maybe there's some way with an intermediary or something we can work with him, and we can do something to the alley, make it so that it isn't as intrusive on his property line,
Okay.
and everybody can be happy, maybe.
So did you, Brian,
Yes, sir.
Wayne, did you want to add to?
I was gonna say the same thing, pretty much. I'm Wayne Toppitz. I live at 137 South Boston, right next to 131, which is the owner of that property. And it was more of the city hasn't really come and cleared the alleyway. We've been clearing it, weed eating it and that kind of thing. And it's the alleyway over the last 20, 30 years has meandered over that way. And the city eventually needs to come in and try to clear it up a little bit. So
Okay,
that's about it.
thanks. So Roger or Chief,
can-
anyone, either one?
Staff will look at this. This is really not a council matter. It's an administrative issue and a staff issue. So we'll assign staff members to look into it and to contact both gentlemen.
Okay, and you'll let us know? All
Be
right.
happy to.
You bet. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak at this time besides the items of the flag policy and the tow policy? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on from the next item is the consent calendar. Council, how would you like to proceed?
Move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as submitted. Are there any other discussions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is awarding the tow company of record contract. What we'll do first is we'll get a staff report, and then we'll take public comment. So, Chief, are you going to handle this, or?
Actually, Captain Schaefer's going to handle this one.
Okay.
Good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor. The City of Coos Bay's tow company of record has expired and a new contract is needed. A competitive RFQ was conducted and Mass Brothers Towing proposal ranked number one in that process. However, if I can, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on sort of where we're at and how we get there. So last year, as most of you will recall, we moved from a rotation list of local towing companies to a tow company of record to handle all of the City of Coos Bay's towing needs. A request for qualification was established to determine a tow company of record for the City of Coos Bay. After a very comprehensive evaluation and scoring process, a company was identified and a 12-month contract was awarded. The 12-month contract has now expired, requiring staff to repeat this RFQ process. City staff contacted the tow companies in our area and provided them with a new RFQ. The companies were given until December 21st to provide the City of Coos Bay with their proposal and a list of their qualifications. At the conclusion of the RFQ process, the City of Coos Bay received two proposals from two local tow companies. Staff assembled a team of evaluators, management staff members from the police department, the fire department, Public Works, to review the proposals and score them based off the criteria set forth in the RFQ. I should note that the selected evaluators are from entities that are more likely to use the tow services in their day-to-day operations. The results are as such. Mass Brothers Tow Company received the top score and North Bend Towing was second. At the conclusion of the RFQ process, it is the recommendation of city staff to award the tow company of record for the City of Coos Bay to Mass Brothers. It is also the recommendation of staff to award this contract for a 36-month process, as a one-year process is relatively short, and the RFQ process is time-consuming for staff to put together and evaluate. A 36-month contract is also more consistent with most of the City of Coos Bay's contracts of this nature. Additionally, 1 year in many cases doesn't give the tow companies enough time to make appropriate changes in order to be better qualified for the next RFQ process. At the conclusion of the 36 months, it is a recommendation of staff to go back out for proposals by means of a RFQ, similar to the one used for this process. I should note that there are no budget implications at this time, as the use of a tow company is already factored into the city's overall budget throughout the various department funds. Finally, if it pleases the council, staff is requesting that you award a 36-month tow company of record contract between the City of Coos Bay and Mass Brothers Towing as a result of the competitive RFQ process.
So for just a little bit of history, if we go back in time, this has been 1 year since we awarded this to Mass. Prior to that, if I remember correctly, there was multiple tow companies that were involved in this. And it became a problem, if I remember correctly, that they would get dispatched from 911, some wouldn't respond, and then that would fall back to somebody else to have to pick it up. And it was causing staff problem, 911, and also the officers a problem, and getting the vehicle towed in a proper manner. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So we went to this process, and Mass was chosen because they met all the requirements, or the RFQ.
Correct.
So again, we go out for another RFQ. Did the number 2 company, which would have been, which company? North Bend?
North Bend Towing.
Did they meet the qualifications?
No, not all of the qualifications, no.
Okay, all right. Those are my questions. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have one. So since you've gone to a tow company of record, of those issues that the mayor was speaking about been resolved?
Yes.
And I believe we went with a 12-month contract because we wanted to allow the companies, because we did hear from multiple companies when we did go to the record tow company, to give them an opportunity to meet some of the criteria
Yes.
that they did not score well on.
Yes.
At the time. And were there improvements as far as the RFQ goes? Did the scores?
Well, there was, last year, there was 4 companies that put in for the contract. This year, there was only 2. I will say that North Bend Towing did improve in that they got a larger, a heavy-duty truck, although there are some concerns that it would be able to handle all the needs of the city. They did improve there, but not to the satisfaction of staff. There were still concerns.
And that's for the larger vehicles?
Yes.
In the event that the tower of record is not available, do we go back to rotation?
We have not had that issue.
I can answer that. So in the RFQ, there is a section in there that in the case that the tow company of record was not available or something happened where, let's say we had multiple vehicles and they were out of available records, then we are allowed to go to a next available tow company. And that's part of the RFQ as well.
Okay. They've been available every time, though?
Yes, to my knowledge, we haven't had an issue.
We've not had to go to a second company.
That's impressive.
Anyone else? Any comments? The council? Okay. Thank you for the report.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, public comments. So Tina, I see that you're on here. Would you like to make a comment? This would be your time, please.
Remember, you got 3 minutes.
Tina, owner of North Bend Towing, is no. We were here last year. Again, there was 4 tow companies last year. Now there's only me and Mass. I wasn't gonna do it. I thought, why? What's the point? I don't have what he has. The only thing that came back was the inside storage. I do have it, but I don't have it completely to where they would be accessible to store a vehicle in there without other people being in there in that building. So that's the downfall of that. My bigger wrecker, I could tow the bigger trucks. It's just not up to par right now. So again, we could do it. I think we're close to being able to be there, but just the inside storage is what really kills us. And when Bandon PD did this, they had taken off the rotation for 10 months, and then they brought us back on, and they had said, hey, if we have to have inside storage, we're just gonna go ahead and call Mass Brothers. I said, fine, I'm okay with that. Just put me back on the rotation for the accidents or the impounds or the abandoned vehicles. I can handle that. If you have to have city vehicles towed, give it to him. I don't care. I just don't feel that you guys should take away the business from us. You know, my dad started this back in 1972. We've been on the rotation for 49 years. And yes, it probably did get out of hand when at one point there were 6 tow companies on rotation. And last year there was 4 that was applying for it. And there was a few issues where we couldn't take an abandoned motorhome because one, it was either too big or we didn't have a driver to drive it. I'm sure that's a pain for the dispatchers. But now with only 2 tow companies, I would think it would be maybe easier to try it, maybe, to have us both on there. And I'm sure he's done wonderful. He's got the capabilities, he's got the manpower. But I have the manpower too that could handle the calls and stuff. And we still tow for North Bend PD and OSP. We've taken all of their motor homes and trailers and fifth wheels and boats and stuff like that. So
1 minute.
I just hate to have to come here and plead to keep my company afloat and stuff when we've always done it. And I get it. I get it that you hate to call a tow company and they can't do it, but we're not like that anymore. I have enough drivers to cover, and I just don't think it should be fair for 3 years. I mean, if you're gonna do it another year or do it 2 years, but 3 years, I didn't even know it was gonna go to 3 years. They never mentioned that to me. But I think they should give us a chance to try it and see if we're able to be, you know, where they don't have to go through a list of tow companies. It's just me and him. They're a good company. You know, they can handle everything. But give the little people, the smaller businesses in this community a chance to do it. I hate to do this. I hate to have to fight. Like I said, I wasn't going to do it, but I thought I've got to try. Got to try to keep it going if I can. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have any questions?
Well, no, I mean, some of the problem that we run in storage is a huge problem for us.
It
And
is.
some of the laws have changed, as you know, Tina, and have put us in an awkward situation. And then I think we can have legal and our chief address it. But when we have to tow these facilities in, we have to maintain the records and the documentation in their facilities for a period of 72 hours or longer. And then we have to, so it's a problem that it's laws that we have to follow.
And I get that. And like Bannon PD said, they would give that all to Mass Brothers
Right.
if it had to be inside. You know,
But-
I get that, you
Right.
know. Other than that, we can do everything else. It's just that inside storage of how many go inside. I don't know, when we were towing for the last 15 years, I never once had to have a call for inside storage. Maybe it's different now. Maybe you guys are doing more and more of police
Well,
investigation.
We had quite a few, and in my opinion, and I can only speak from what I've heard, is that, it's not fair to have a tow company just have to do certain things and the other tow company be able to get the other things.
Yeah.
It should be fair
Well,
that
inside
they
would
have
be
to.
great for
They
him.
have to do, well, they would have to do everything. So, I don't know, it's one thing to think about the year, maybe we can discuss that, but anyway,
Yeah.
those are my comments.
All right, thank
I have
you.
a question. If this council were to decide to do a 1-year or a 2-year contract, would you make any improvements to expand your inside storage area?
If I could, I would. Honestly, I would try. There's not a lot of property around to go put up a building, and that costs a lot of money, and, when you take stuff away from us, it's hard to continue to get money growing, because he gets a lot of them. He gets a lot of the calls. So, I would love to be able to have inside storage. Like I said, I have a building for inside, but it also has another business inside there, so I can't use that. I mean, North Bend Towing owns the building, but they don't want me to have an inside, it would be blocked off, but they still feel like they don't have access to that inside storage, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So just for clarification, the points that would go towards that, what Tina is talking about, is that there's not locked access, or
So what we're talking about in secured access is, or secured storage, is for when a vehicle is impounded for police matters, criminal investigation, maybe it's used in an assault or an homicide or something of that nature, we have to have it completely secure where we can assure that the chain of custody, our evidence process hasn't been tampered with. The reason that when we had multiple tow companies on our rotation, the reason that some of the other companies weren't used, they didn't have the adequate storage, so then we did default to Mast Brothers. But when you're looking at an RFQ encompasses all of those needs needed by the city, not just the police department, but public works, fire department. And it has to hit all those points because you don't have the option of going to just cherry pick whatever tow company is capable of handling whatever need there is that day. And so that's why. I will also say that just the shifting in the laws now, Ninth Circuit rulings and stuff in recent case law has required us to seize vehicles more often and apply for search warrants. So that is something that we're using more frequently. It is a necessity to us for our I'm not going to say day-to-day operations, but it is a necessity for our operations.
We do have tow yards. We have places to put other vehicles and motorhomes and stuff like that. We just don't have something to secure for what he's talking about, again, the investigations for that kind of stuff. But we have yards to put other vehicles in there, so.
Okay, yeah, I just needed clarification for the secured portion.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments for staff, or if not, how would you like to proceed?
Well, I guess I do have a comment. Are we going to make a motion first? I have a comment. I feel like...
You can make a comment, motion, or
Okay,
both.
I'm going to make a comment.
Okay.
I would propose that this council consider a 24-month contract instead of a 36-month contract. I think it's still a win for what we're trying to accomplish, but it also gives North Bend Towing an opportunity to pursue more availability for inside storage. You are a small business, and you've been in business for 49 years, and we appreciate that. 50 years. So I would like us to consider a 24-month contract instead of a 36-month contract.
I agree with that.
How's the rest of the council feel?
I'm fine with it.
Someone needs to make a motion then.
I'll make a motion to award a 24-month tow company of record contract between the City of Coos Bay and Mast Brothers Towing as a result of a competitive RFQ process.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Are there any other comments by the council? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to award a 24-month tow company of record contract between the City of Coos Bay and Mast Brothers. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a discussion regarding the flag policy. We have quite a few that have signed up to speak on this behalf. Even the ones that haven't signed up will have an opportunity to speak if they wish. What we'll do is we'll go through the list first and then ask anyone else if they want to speak. Since there's so many, I'm going to limit it to 2 minutes instead of the 3 minute. So come up, just give us your name, city where you reside, and give us your comment. And so we'll start with Carla Ryan.
Mayor, councilors,
Hey, just speak in the mic if you can, best you can. I know. Thank you.
my name is Reverend Dr. Carla Ryan. I am a resident of Coos County, North Bend, an interfaith minister, and a continuing student of the world's major religions, Christianity being one of them, and which is based on the teachings of Jesus. As you may be aware, Jesus taught there were only 2 key commandments or rules of faith: love God, love your neighbor. He did not say to exclude or intimidate those who don't believe the same things you do, nor did he instruct his followers to plant a flag in front of a government building. In reality, there are 3 instances in the New Testament of the Christian Bible where Jesus instructs his followers to give to Caesar, the ruling government of that time, what is due, and to God what is God's. thus providing an example of the separation of church and state. The founders of this country were also diligent in this area of thought when they drafted the U.S. Constitution. Never once did they mention the word God in its text, nor in the Bill of Rights. In fact, the first clause states Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. I'm grateful to live in a country where I have the freedom to choose one faith, or many, or none, to guide my mortal life, without intimidation or threats by others, including government or my neighbors. The Coos Bay City Council has created a flag policy that clearly states the city will not display a commemorative or ceremonial flag based upon the request of a third party, nor will the city use its flagpoles to sponsor the expression of a third party, and that these flagpoles are not intended to be a forum for free expression of the public. In my humble opinion, and as an ordained minister, I find no religious discrimination in this government policy, nor is it impeding any free speech of a particular person or group. Any flags or banners or other expressions of a specific religion have their place in the churches, the temples, the mosque, the synagogues, and homes of their particular leaders and congregants.
Time's up.
I just don't want the city council here to make the same mistake Boston did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne Moss? Joanna Moss, sorry. Just pull it down. There you go.
All right,
And
don't
just
rub
speak.
it in.
No, I'm in the same position. Don't worry about it.
My husband's 6'3", so. Esteemed Mayor Benetti and City Council members, my name is Joanne Moss. My husband and I purchased our home at 450 North Main Street in Empire in 2006. Through the years, we've witnessed many positive changes and improvements to our area, including a more inclusive, positive environment fostered by our progressive and welcoming city leadership. And I applaud you for that. Our world, if you take a look outside any time of the day or night, is made up of all colors, shapes, and sizes. It's not just black and white. That's exactly what our country is. What a boring world it would be if we all looked the same, if we all believed the same way, or thought the same. Contrary to what some may believe, this country was not founded to be for one specific religion or belief. This country was founded to be a country where an individual is free to choose and to practice their own religion, their own beliefs, and their own way of thinking. This freedom means that there is room for all, and no one specific group is to be excluded or demeaned in any way. Mayor Benetti, our city council, and all of our city leaders, I thank all of you for keeping our city as an inclusive, welcoming, and equitable place in which to live and raise our kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. So is it Daryl Barr? Yeah. Hi, Daryl.
Yeah, I'm Daryl Barr. I live at 2309 North 11th Street in Coos Bay here. And about the flags, I have an objection to, if you do have flags, not allowing the Christian flag. I heard and understand that's been banned, and that you won't allow a Christian flag. I do have an objection to the Black Lives Matter flag, though, because they say that we're all racist. Well, I want to disagree with that. My younger brother is married to a black woman. She had two kids, which they were married. They had two kids. They're married to white men. By the way, they're great big Marine guys, so I wouldn't suggest you telling them they're racist. One of my older brothers is a personal friend of Al Jarreau, him and his second wife. I don't think you want to call him racist. And by the way, I took Al's ex-wife to lunch once in Portland. I'm not a racist. And when I was in junior college in Los Angeles, in a very bad area, going to LA Trade Tech for school. My apartment complex, I risked my life to save my black apartment manager's life because a white guy was trying to knife him in the hallway. So I grabbed him, and we together wrestled the knife away from him. So I really object to being called a racist by Black Lives Matters, or anyone at all. And I think if you're going to allow flags, you need, about the gay pride flags, I think that's sex should be left in the bedroom, not in the flag flying around here. Anyway, if you have flags, you need to have a Christian flag also. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Spores? Good evening.
Yeah, my name's Greg Spores. Find it interesting that this morning I was in Coquille objecting to the same thing I'm objecting to now.
Could you tell
This
us
is
where
not
you're
the
from?
place.
Where's he from?
Can you just state where you're from? Was it Bandon, you said?
Do what?
Where are you from? You're Bandon?
Bandon, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bandon.
sorry.
Okay, thank you. It's all right.
First of all, what's religion? Religion. I wrote down 3 examples. A pursuit or interest in which someone ascribes supreme importance, a personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices, or just simply scrupulous conformity. I believe BLM falls in those descriptions. I believe that the LGBTQ community falls within those definitions, especially since this council allows the LGBTQ community to evangelize in the city, in our parks and libraries. Lowe's versus Eugene in 1969. Public land cannot be set apart for the permanent display of an essentially religious symbol when that display connotes government sponsorship. Religious displays on public property must pass constitutional muster by not violating the First Amendment's established clause, which requires government neutrality towards religion. Now, I am appalled that you allow this community to attack and evangelize our children and try to convert them into their beliefs. But how can we possibly allow you to start flying religious symbols on public lands opposed to our Constitution? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Richard. I have trouble with your last name, Richard, so just come on up.
Pretty straightforward, because
I know I should know how to pronounce it by now, should I not?
Okay, a lot of what I was going to say has been said by a number of the other speakers. The United States of America is a secular nation with a predominantly Christian population. The founders of our country were very clear that religion has no place in the governing or the government of our country. And it's right there in that, shall not have an establishment, do anything to establish a religion. If you need to do the research and see what the founders, what they talked about, what their ideas were, why they came to the conclusion they did and included that in the First Amendment. Okay, the government is down to the city councils, libraries, any other government agency or
1 minute.
facility, and none of them should have religious symbols. It's against the Constitution. It's unconstitutional. If the city of Coos Bay starts flying a blatantly religious flag on the boardwalk, it's unconstitutional. Okay, and if people need to feel that they must fly this flag, there are other ways they can fly it, but not on government property and not on any government facilities.
Thank you, Richard.
I think a lot of people have said what I just said.
Okay.
Richard, are you from North Bend? Is that right?
Yeah,
North Bend?
yes. I live in North Bend.
Okay.
And just for the record, the last day or so marks the 50th anniversary of my moving to Coos County.
Congratulations. Okay, we have Jamar Ruff.
Hello.
Hello,
My name
Jamar.
is Jamar. I'm a resident of North Bend, Oregon. The pride flag is a visual reminder of the struggles and oppressions that people in the LGBTQIA2S+ community have faced and continue to. But it's also a sign of hope. We know how important it is to have visibility and representation in communities, but especially in rural communities, where identifying as anything other than what's beside the box can lead to a person feeling unsafe in their own community. After the city of Coos Bay flew the progressive pride flag, it did not just affirm only our community, but it gave hope to the LGBTQ plus communities throughout Oregon. For this reason, I encourage the City Council to keep the flag policy as is or not shy away when more deliberation is needed on a topic which has the potential to create a strong ripple effect throughout the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Karen Saver?
For the record, it's Karen Savage, and I'm from Bandon.
Thank you.
And I actually did the research here, and I was looking at the majority decision written by Justice Stephen Breyer, and what he said was the city's lack of, this is for Boston versus whoever the guy was, the city's lack of meaningful involvement in the selection of flags or the crafting of the messages leads us to classify the flag raising as private, not government speech. And I seem to think that that's the fly in the ointment here. Now, to go on, one of the things that I like about Coos Bay is its diversity. And I like to see the various flags flown there to, for the city of Coos Bay to say, we want to recognize these different diverse constituencies. That might be a way out of this for you, is that you actually make it official government speech and recognize the diversity of the community. Unless there's any questions, that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Reverend Elise Uxton? Oh, there you are. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mayor and City Council. My name is Reverend Alyssa Augustin, and I am the pastor at Gloria Dei Lutheran Church. We are a Christian congregation that seeks to be welcoming and inclusive to all people, regardless of gender and sexual identity, age, race, ethnicity, and ability. We read in the Bible of a God who continually breaks down the walls that humans build to divide. And I speak in support of flying our progressive flags, Pride flag, Black Lives Matter, against flying the so-called Christian flag. There is no flag that is a unifying symbol of faith in the history of Christianity. This so-called Christian flag is not representative of all Christians and continues to be a symbol of division. Our progressive flags, on the other hand, is a flag of inclusion and welcome. Christian communities are not often known for being a safe space for our LGBTQIA siblings, and flying this so-called Christian flag is a symbol of the pain and the violence that has been done and continues to be done in the name of God, limiting God to being a God of fear and hate instead of a God of love and inclusion, a God of love and embrace of all humans who deserve dignity and love, space to live our truest selves as God has created us. The pride flag is a powerful symbol of love and inclusion. The images we display as a community speak to our willingness and ability to welcome people. Images that divide, exclude, and images that include, welcome. And as a pastor of Gloria Dei Lutheran Church, I stand in favor of continuing to fly the pride flag on the Coos Bay Boardwalk. Thank you.
Thank you. Mo Aker?
I'm coming.
All right, no problem.
Right there.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Benetti and councilors, and Councilor Matthews, who is on a screen up there. Hello. I just want to say I'm adamantly opposed to any religious flag, Christian flag on the boardwalk. One of my best friends that grew up here, our kids grew up together, is a practicing Hindu. My tech guy in Coos Bay, oh, I do live in Coos Bay. He's a Muslim. One of my friends in Bandon just converted from Christianity to Islam. We have a large Jewish community in our community, right? And what is Christian? Is it Latter-day Saints? Is it Seventh-day Adventists? Is it Pentecostal? Is it Jehovah's Witnesses? I mean, it's not unifying at all. It's not unifying. I love the pride flag. I love our city. I want to thank you guys. Our city's beautiful. We're growing. Great. Congratulations for all your hard work. Am I done?
No, we got a minute.
Oh, what else do you want me to do? I'm so happy. I love Coos Bay. I love it. Thank you for all your hard work, for everybody here. Yay. Go Coos Bay.
Thank you. Tim Eddingfield? No such, oh, there you are, Tim.
Good evening, Mayor Benetti and Council. I am Tim, and I am from 62960 Pansy Road in Coos Bay. I have been a resident of Coos County for over 10 years. I have graduated from my time at both Marshfield and in North Bend. And in my time here in this community, I have been blown away by the amount of diversity, by the amount of inclusion and love that we all share. The pride flag is more than just a flag of the LGBTQ community. It is a flag of inclusivity, of diversity. Like there are many colors in the spectrum of light, as there are many colors in the spectrum of the rainbow. That represents our individuality as people. That sparks our creativity and our drive to come together as a community. It's more than just what it seems. So I ask that you please keep the flag and keep our community growing in its inclusivity and its care. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Gehrig? Sorry for the pronunciation. I know it's not correct.
My name is Laura Ursig, and I live in Coos Bay. I am grateful to live in a community that takes issues such as the flag policy seriously, and I thank every person who's been a part of, who has taken the time to be a part of this process. I'm humbly offering my feedback to y'all that we keep the policy as is. The impact of your decision, which allowed the Pride Progress flag to wave during Pride Month last year, had a significant positive impact in the community, to the point where folks who had moved away, who had grown up here, were telling me if this had been something I had seen, I would have felt seen. I would have felt like somebody out there would appreciate me for who I am. I know this policy isn't just like the pride flag policy, but that kind of feels like how it is when you're the first sometimes. And I want to just acknowledge that as a queer person, it feels like the queer community is on trial to a certain extent of, are we worthy enough to be safe in this community, to be deemed as safe? Whether or not that's the reality, it's the feeling that my body's telling me when my legs are a little shaky and my heart beats a lot. It tells me that it's important and it's scary. There's 2 kids who wanted to come today and speak and got wigged out because it was too scary to come into a room where something they think is important could be taken away. So, in summary, thank you for the decision you have made. I hope it continues to stand. That's all.
Thank you. Alexa Carlton?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Alexa Carlton, and I live in Coos Bay, and I'm starting my clock. As a longtime member of this community, I'll start by saying just how much it meant for the city to write a flag policy that opened the door to certain flags being flown on the boardwalk. The example I'll point to, of course, is the pride flag being flown for the duration of Pride Month last year, which was an unforgettable experience to those of us in the queer community. Most would agree that we need more than flags being flown to really stop things like homophobia, which members of the queer community experience on a daily basis. But symbolic actions hold a lot of power. Seeing the pride flag on the boardwalk sent a direct message to the queer community and to our community at large. It said, "We see you. You are welcome here. You are safe here. This is your home." When it comes to flags, the pride flag is particularly powerful. It's a reminder of the many lives lost while fighting for equal rights and human dignity. It's a reminder that queer communities of color are especially threatened even today, and we have a lot of wrongs to undo. But it also represents hope. If you didn't feel moved by the flag, or if you found yourself thinking that flag doesn't really belong up there, then you are likely not part of a marginalized community that has had to fight to be seen and to live and to belong. That being said, it seems that the pride flag being flown has opened up the door to questions about why other flags can't be flown as well. In response, I would point to the text of the flag policy as written, which makes it clear that the city's flagpoles are not intended to be a forum for free expression by the public. Ceremonial or commemorative flags shall be displayed as an expression of the city's official sentiments. When the pride flag went up because of what it symbolizes and because the city council decided that this flag's message was one they wanted to stand behind. This flag policy goes way beyond the pride flag. I hope there are other future flags that express messages of unity and hope as well, and you should have the option of flying those flags. Of the 4 options for moving forward, I'd like to throw my support behind number 1, keeping the flag policy as written, and number 2, adding language to prohibit flags with a religious connotation, taking one step further towards keeping the necessary separation of church and state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tom Jeffries?
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, my name is Tom Jeffries. I live at 62228 Crown Point Road in Coos Bay. I'm not going to be nearly as eloquent as some of the previous speakers and probably much shorter, but I just want to applaud you all for the decision to fly the pride flag on the boardwalk. And I want to encourage you to keep that policy the same as it is now. I don't see how this does any harm to anyone. And it shows that we are an inclusive community, that we accept people of all colors, creeds, sexual preferences, etc. I probably left a few things out there, but as far as flying the Christian flag, it's fine. In my opinion, it's fine.
1 minute.
If people want to, if churches want to fly it on church property, but our founding fathers seem to know best. When they wrote the Constitution, they decided that we should keep church and state separate, and I believe that's the way it should be. And so, therefore, I would be against flying the Christian flag, but continue to fly the gay pride flag. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Donna Nelson?
Thank you for letting me speak today. And I am from North Bend. I've been here since 1986 and a homeowner up at Airport Heights since 1996. So I am first time ever speaking or coming to a council meeting, so that's how important this issue is for me. And I am in favor of inclusion and unity and acceptance and diversity. I can't tell you how proud I was to see the pride flag fly last year. And I would like to see other flags like that, like Black Lives Matter, I think is very important as well. And I think that I'd like to see you keep the policy the way it is. I think that it's important if I was coming through town as a visitor to be able to see that flying. I think I would feel accepted, and I would want to spend money in this community. I think it would improve commerce. and the economy. I think people would want to stay. I think it would help benefit Coos County greatly, and I thank you for your consideration of continuing this policy and being able to accept diversity. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Rob Taylor?
Hello, councilors. I'm from Bandon. I represent many different business owners and different people who've asked me to come here and speak on their behalf. And you started this, you know. Okay, so you had a policy where you only got to choose which flag went up. You picked the gay flag, and we came here and we asked you to hang the Christian flag because we believe in inclusivity too. None of us, most of us who came here ever spoke out about getting rid of the pride flag. It was never an issue. And so we just want it to be included. That's part of inclusivity. And all we want you to do is fly the Gadsden flag and the Christian flag. That's all we asked. And so you put a moratorium on it. You know the history of this. And now you've given us 1, 2, 3, 4 options. I am working now with the Liberty Council, and the gentleman who took the shirt lift versus City of Boston case to the Supreme Court, he's now working with us on this. And we will see this through. This is something we are determined with. And he has already said that issue 1, or policy 1 and option 1 and option 2 are no options at all because the Supreme Court has already ruled on this. And we are willing to fight this to the end because it's about equal representation under the law. And so we gave you 2 policies, either fly all the flags equally or just fly the government official flags, which is number 3. We're all in support of number 3. If this is the options you're giving us, then we want you to vote for number 3. But if you don't vote for number 3, and this is not a threat, this is our legal remedy, we will see this in court. This will be a liability for the city, and we are not going to tolerate not being included in our city. We deserve the same inclusivity as every other human being on the planet.
Time's up.
And so I just hope you consider that option number 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the end of the list I have, but that doesn't mean if somebody else would like to come up and speak, they can. Tracy?
Hello, my name is Tracy Pierce, and I live at 878 Michigan Avenue. And I wasn't going to speak. However, we had a friend who left this community because he was a gay man. He was threatened daily, wasn't comfortable. Came back, saw the flag, great amount of pride. There are churches everywhere in our community. They are included. I have a religion that's not represented. I don't ask that anyone else, I appreciate that you want to have your faith in your religion, but it upsets me so much with individuals say we're going to sue individuals who want to create joy for others because they want to oppress others with their view. You have churches everywhere in this community. There are plenty of places where your flags can be flown. Why must you do this to others? I just don't get it.
All right. Okay, hold on. So, who did you want to did you already speak?
No.
Okay, just come on up and give us your name and where you reside, please.
Adrian Hutchison, Coos Bay.
Your name?
Adrian Hutchison.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear
from
that. Okay.
Coos Bay.
Sorry.
Still, I would just like, I think I'm correct and listened pretty well to the people that were speaking. I'd just like to point out that the only people who came here supporting a Christian flag being flown were from Bandon. And I guess I'd like to know whether or not Bandon has this rule, or why the people from Bandon that are here fighting aren't fighting there.
Okay.
Fair point.
My name's Jody Hoffman, and I'm from Coos Bay. And I was here when the moratorium, the flag moratorium was passed. I had a Christian flag here, and I asked you to fly it. Also, the "Don't Tread on Me" flag for my wife, who's a Marine. And I thought about bringing it tonight. I put it up at home as soon as I got home. It's all tattered. It's green. It's got rust on it, and it's soaking wet. And I just didn't want to have that wet, slimy thing in here with everyone. But that's how long it's been. And it's great that we include people in our community. But you know, the Establishment Clause was, you're not supposed to establish a religion or discriminate against one. So, you know, here's the discrimination. What's wrong with our flag? It's wholesome and virtuous. It's good. What's wrong with it? Answer that.
Okay, yes. Yes.
Mayor, council members, Matt Wilbanks, Coos Bay. First, to the lady that was two before me, if you want to throw down a challenge that you think only Bandon is here speaking, Bandon is not here speaking. As Rob said, he's a friend of a lot of us. I'm from Coos Bay, and I'm here to speak out against your nonsense, okay? We are here because we believe in equal application of the law, okay? You apparently got every progressive activist in Coos County, or at least in Coos Bay, to show up here tonight. It's quite obvious. That's great. They got freedom of speech just like anybody does. But the truth is, we want equal application of the law. All I see is them coming up here. They're all in favor of a flag policy when that flag policy flies the flag they like. They're against that flag policy when that flag policy flies a flag they don't like. It's pure hypocrisy. It is not equal application of the law. And as Rob stated, there are plenty of people here in Coos Bay, your constituents, who aren't going to put up with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So is there? Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I'm a little nervous first time doing
Sorry,
this.
what was your name and where do you live?
I'm sorry. My name is Brian Fish. I live in Coos Bay. I've lived here a total about 9 years. I retired from the Coast Guard last year. 22 years of service. What made me a little sick to my stomach was last year, in June, I was driving by the boardwalk and I saw the pride flag up there. And it wasn't the pride flag that made me sick, because what was I thinking about in June of 2021? I was thinking about, oh, it was June 6th, 77th year anniversary of D-Day. And was there a POW MIA flag up there? Hell no, there wasn't. There was a gay pride flag. Is that what we should be putting up on the anniversary of D-Day? Listen, there's a lot of talk about I am a Christian and I am a believer, but I tell you what, this has nothing to do with LGBT flags and Christian flags. I don't know why we are spending so much time on that. Option 3 to me seems like the only thing that makes sense right now. It's the only option that will make everybody happy, because somebody's not going to be happy with some flag at some point. That is all I have to say. I think, and then also, as far as just one comment, since I have time, 3 seconds?
33.
33 seconds, that's perfect. For those of you who haven't read the First Amendment to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, please just go read it again. I don't think separation is in there. It's establishment and it's freedom of religion. So just before you quote and talk about separation of church and state, remember that they're talking about establishment. They're not talking about religion being in government. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Ken Denton.
I'm a resident of North Bend, although I go to church at Gloria Day Lutheran Church in Coos Bay. Pride is not a religion. All the gay people I know don't go into church because they were beat up there when they were younger. They're afraid of the place. And we have a history in Coos Bay of gay students being discriminated against. Some of them had to go to court and sue to get that situation straightened out. People are afraid. Their suicide rates are higher. I was so proud to attend the opening ceremony of hanging that flag last year, the gay pride flag, or the pride flag there. Our church, Gloria Day Lutheran Church, had this discussion 5 years ago. Do we want to openly welcome and support LGBTQIA people? We voted 96% to do that. That church was a supporter, a financial supporter, and an active volunteer supporter of Pride in the Park this year. There were 400 people showed up at Pride in the Park. Those aren't all gay people. Those are people in this community who vote, who care, who wanted to come and support. We fed 280 people lunch for free. This community has indicated last year, has moved into the 21st century, and I'm proud of it. Don't back up.
All right, thank you. Okay, are there any other comments? Yes.
Second comment allowed?
No. Thank you, though. Yes.
Hello, my name is Claire Woodham. I've been a resident of Coos Bay for 5 years, and I wanted to say I support option 3, and that is because we can't make everyone happy by flying everyone's flag, so we might as well fly the American flag, because that represents all of us, and I feel like that will solve the problem, because we don't have just one person's flag up or a group of people's flags up. We just have the American flag that represents all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Michael Hansen from Coos Bay. I am for inclusivity for everyone. It doesn't matter what piece of cloth we hang at the top of the pole, but it's beautiful seeing all American flags right now, as we have. The tribal flags are a great addition to that. I would support only flying government flags, U.S. flag, state of Oregon, tribal flags, Coos Bay City flag, whatever we want to do in the government type of realm. Anything else, you want to fly the pride flag, you got to fly the other flags. You got to fly everybody's flag. If we want to fly the Christian flag, then all my Christian brothers may get up here and suggest it. And if you're flying the pride flag, you're going to need to accept the Christian flag. You're going to need to accept the BLM flag when they come here asking for that. The Temple of Set might come in and ask for their flag to be flown. So, this is deeply important. There's a lot of people that are going to feel excluded. And a bulk of the population is Christian in this neighborhood that I know of. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Oh, come on.
Hi, I'm Diana Kalyumagi from Bandon, Kaljumagi, because I know that's a tough name. First of all, I want to thank you for your time. I know a lot of you are volunteers, and I really, really appreciate it. It's a tough decision, but I would just advocate not for choosing the second option, which would be to have any exclusivity about any language about not including any flag. So, and I suppose the decision is also whether this is going to be a public forum place or whether it's going to be just a government place. And I believe that the language is already, it is not a public forum place, the flagpole. I would either stay with keeping the language as it is in the flag policy, or not using the flags for any sort of public display and just keeping them government flags. But I definitely would not have any language that excludes anybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? All right, we'll close the public hearing on this item. So we're going to take, we'll talk to our city attorney, get some information from him, and then the city manager. Just for clarification so everyone knows where we're at. It was mentioned, this was adopted in September of 2021, and the flag policy. And then the pride flag was submitted to be flown, and we accepted that. Then it was brought to our attention that we need to reconsider it or have it looked at. So we put a moratorium on the flag policy for 90 days. And unfortunately, it continued on, and that was my fault. I had some issues, health issues in my family I was dealing with, and so I got pushed down the road to where it is today. So my apologies that it was not within the 90 days. But we had our city attorney given direction to look into this. The Boston matter that went to the Supreme Court and all legal issues that are pertaining to this. And so that's where we're at today. And so we will have to make a decision on your testimony and also the legal information we get from our city attorney, information we get from the city manager, and then, of course, our own input and thoughts. So anyway, Nate, can you go ahead?
Yeah, as you mentioned, back in 2021, a request was made to the city that the city should support the LGBTQ community by flying the gay pride flag on one of the city's flagpoles. We came to the conclusion we couldn't just do that without some type of policy, so I was...
Nate, can you speak in the mic, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you could hear that. But I did some research associated with this, in terms of what would be necessary for a flag policy. And we adopted, the city of Coos Bay adopted a flag policy. And it's actually modeled after other flag policies in other communities. And the purpose of the policy was to create a process by which the city, through the council, would be able to express its support for various community groups, activities, or issues without creating, and that's the key there, without creating a public forum whereby the public at large would be able to express their personal views on similar or different topics. In other words, a process by which the council could exercise its First Amendment right of free speech as a government entity. And that's referred to as government speech. It's a recognized concept. So the government itself has a right of free speech as well. As we're talking about the use of the city-owned flagpole, the idea is that the city can express its position on a particular topic by flying a particular flag, without creating a situation where members of the public at large have a right to express their own opinions or positions on that same or a different subject by flying different kinds of flagpoles. There's been some discussion about the Boston case, and I had an opportunity to review that case, and I think just a short summary of that might be helpful. That's a case of Shurtleff versus the city of Boston. In that case, the court ruled that the city of Boston's process of allowing the public to fly commemorative flags on one of its flagpoles created a public forum and was not government speech. Therefore, the city's refusal to allow the flying of a Christian flag violated the free speech requirements of the First Amendment. Based upon Shurtleff, the question has been raised here as to whether the city's commemorative flag policy has created a public forum such that the city would be violating the free speech provisions of the First Amendment if the city were to refuse to use the use of the flagpole to a member of the public. Now, the Shurtleff case concerned a flagpole outside Boston City Hall. For years, Boston had allowed private groups to simply request a particular flag, and that request was always granted. And in fact, hundreds of different flags were raised at different periods of time. The city, there was no policy particularly, there was no policy at all in terms of the city expressing its own government speech, so to speak. The city did not deny a single request to raise a flag until 2017 when Mr. Shurtleff, the director of a group called Camp Constitution, asked to fly a Christian flag. Boston refused, claiming it'd be a violation of the First Amendment. Boston admitted that it had no written policy limiting use of the flagpole based on the content of the flag. The issue presented was whether, on those facts, Boston reserved the pole to fly flags that communicate government messages, or instead open the flagpole to citizens to express their own views, in other words, a public forum. If the former, Boston would be free to choose what flags it wishes to fly without constraints of the First Amendment's free speech clause. If it's the latter, in other words, it's a public forum, the free speech clause would prevent Boston from refusing a flag based on its viewpoint. In finding that the Boston's use of the flagpole created a public forum, the court stated in pertinent part, this quotation from Judge Beyer, I believe, Boston could easily have done more to make clear it wished to speak for itself by raising flags, in other words, government speech. Other cities' flagpole policies support our conclusion. It cites the city of San Jose, California, for example, where it provides in a written policy that flagpoles are not intended to serve as a forum for free expression by the public, and lists approved flags that may be flown as an expression of the city's official sentiment. All told, while the historical practice of the flag flying at government buildings favors Boston, this is the court is saying, the city's lack of a meaningful involvement in the selection of flags or the crafting of their message leads us to classify the flag raising as private, non-government speech, though nothing prevents Boston from changing its policies going forward. The Shurtleff case is factually dissimilar to our situation. In the present matter, the city has created a written policy which specifically states that the purpose of the policy is to allow the city to express its position on matters, and that it is not intended as a public forum, similar to the San Jose policy referred to in Shurtleff. In addition, the city does not have a history of allowing the flying of commemorative flags on its flagpoles, as was the case with Boston. As such, it's my opinion that the city of Coos Bay, through its council, has the right to control messages being expressed by way of the flying of certain commemorative flags on the city flagpole, and that doing so does not create a public forum. It's also my opinion that the city should be very much concerned about flying religious flags, any kind of religious flag. And the reason for that is if you take a look at the First Amendment. The First Amendment pertinent portion says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. If we allow a religious flag, one religious flag, to be put up there, under our policy, it would be the city showing support for that particular religious religion. And if we do that, we're running afoul of the First Amendment, unless we allow all religions, any religions, or quasi-religions, or people who call themselves religions, to raise their own particular flag, which creates some particular issues. And one point I might make it out, and it's following the decision in the Boston case, a Satanist group requests that it be allowed to fly its flag on the Boston flagpole. So, if the city were to fly a Christian flag pursuant to its flag policy, it would be expressing the city's position in support of Christianity. If the city were to refuse to fly a flag representing other religions, it would be seen as violating the principle of the Establishment Clause, or as the courts have referred to it, as the separation of church and state. It's not in the First Amendment, but it's how the Supreme Court has discussed it in the past. On the other hand, if the city allowed all religious flags to be flown, the city is in reality creating a public forum, at least for the flying of religious flags. Therefore, it would be my recommendation, if the city were to continue with the commemorative flag policy, that it modify the policy to state that in light of First Amendment prohibitions as to the establishment of religion, that the city would not fly flags which have a religious connotation, meaning, or purpose. I will point out, I think, as pointed out here, I think any lawsuit filed against the city is defensible. I think the city's created a government speech situation. However, that doesn't mean someone's not going to sue the city. It doesn't mean the city doesn't have to defend that, and that can take years, especially if it's in federal court, and take lots and lots of money. If by chance the city were to lose, you'd probably end up having to pay whoever's suing you, their attorney fees as well. So I mean, there are concerns, financial concerns in terms of the impact of litigation, if litigation arises from this particular situation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
So, council, no, none from the public. I'm sorry. The public, we're going to discuss it among ourselves now. So, council, any questions for Nate?
I do. I have a question.
Yes.
What does repealing the policy, how does that leave us or open us?
You're in a situation, I don't think it creates any liability. You had a policy, you have a right to remove that policy if you wish. And I think effectively it's what happened in Boston. Boston simply says, we're not going to fly more flags, period. Other than government flags.
Okay. Anyone else?
Nate, in terms of, I know you'll need a crystal ball for this, but in terms of potential expense of a lawsuit filed against us, do you have any idea what that might cost the city?
We go back to, we had an issue some years back about a religious issue where there was threats of litigation, and the figures we were hearing, hundreds of thousands of dollars, a couple $100,000, $300,000. It's expensive. You would need a constitutional law lawyer who's, has a little more expertise in that area than I do.
Okay.
If a larger city were to take on that legal challenge, would we have the ability to sign on amicus?
You probably could, yeah.
So I'd be friend of the court in support of the lawsuit if somebody else had the main bill.
All right.
Does our insurance cover this? Our city insurance cover this?
We've actually,
That's my part.
Okay.
Okay, wait, let's go one thing at a time. So
Sorry.
is anything else for Nate before we go any further? And then we'll get to Roger. So just to clarify, you believe that this is defensible against a claim, but you're not, that doesn't mean that there won't be a lawsuit.
Yeah.
And we have no idea where that will end.
Right. I mean, the city has created a policy, and that policy does not create a public forum. So the city, through the council, can choose what flags, commemorative flags, it wishes to fly. But in doing that, you're sending support to that particular topic, issue, group, or whatever. And you don't have an obligation to fly the flag of someone who might oppose that particular group or issue.
But the way the policy, our flag policy is now, you believe legally that we need to change that, even if we continue with the flag policy, correct?
I think, my recommendation is you change it so you make it very clear we're not going to be flying religious flags of any kind, any nature, any religion. However, if you don't change it, you can still apply that to not flying any religious flags. That would be a council decision. My concern is that if we do fly any religious flags, you are basically sending support to that religion, and in order to avoid violating the First Amendment, you got to let every religious flag be flown.
So as an attorney and knowing all the details that you've laid out for us, what is your recommendation here?
Well, if it's your decision to maintain it, the policy, my recommendation would be to modify it or amend it to specifically prohibit the flying of any religious flags.
If you don't amend it, then you are in a position of picking and choosing. Basically,
Well, you're picking and choosing anyway.
You're picking and choosing, and someone has to make application.
Right.
And then the council is picking and choosing by a vote.
True. But I mean, if you put an amendment in it expressly prohibiting religious flags, then I mean, you know that the people who want to fly a religious flag know that coming in, that we're not going to do that, and because we're not going to, violate the First Amendment in that regard.
Nate, I have another question.
Yes.
Sorry. So Nate, if we revise the policy as recommended, do you still think there is potential liability for a lawsuit?
I'm not saying there's well, there's always potential. I think that we are in a good defensible position. Doesn't mean we're not going to get sued.
Okay, thank you.
So, say we were to put in the restriction against religious flags, I think we should also remember there are other problematic flags out there that are not religious.
That's true.
That amendment would do nothing to address that, correct?
No, of course it would. That's why you guys got the tough job.
That's when we would have to make the decision.
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
Anyway, so, exactly. So, all right, anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So in the flag policy 2.3.4, the city will not display a commemorative or ceremonial flag based upon a request of a third party. Doesn't that already cover us for this? Because if somebody's asking us to fly a flag, we can't accept that request because that's against our policy.
Right, I mean, there has to, I mean, as I see the process is someone would request of a council member that it be brought to the council. It could be done in a public setting, or it could be done in a private setting. And then again, it's up to you to decide, you as a council decide whether you're going to fly that flag. And in flying that flag, you're showing support for what's behind that flag.
Okay, anyone else? Doesn't mean we can't come back to Nate, but then let's go to Roger, and then...
Sure.
So just one more for
Sure.
clarification.
Yeah.
If the flag policy is repealed, we have to state what goes on those poles.
No, you don't have to state that. I think our policy beforehand were just basically governmental related flags. And we do have a policy to fly, U.S., state, city, and the tribal flags. That, I think, is the policy we've already established. And the idea was we were only going to have one flagpole that we would fly commemorative flags. And if you repeal it, we're just not going to fly commemorative flags, period.
Okay. Roger?
Well, obviously, you already know that there are many opinions on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and it differs among various people. We've also heard that what flags are flown could be a source of potential litigation, and I think you have either, depending on how you construe it, promises or threats of litigation. I did speak today to the General Counsel of City County Insurance, the organization which insures the city, and we discussed what does potential litigation mean to the city, and is it covered by an insurance provider? And the answer was, it depends. But more likely than not, you would not be insured. And as the city attorney has shared with you, if it's through the federal courts, it can take years to litigate and can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. As my fiduciary duty to the city, I would share that would cause me great concern, because we do have limited resources. If the council is considering changing your flag policy, you would not be the first. Many cities have chosen to repeal their flag policy because they found it's caused more division than unity, and taken up more time of the council than they have time to give. If you were to ask my opinion, I would repeal it.
Okay, questions for Roger?
Roger, did we reach out to League of Oregon Cities and see what their position was on a flag policy? And two, are there any cities in the state of Oregon that currently have a flag policy in place?
As to the first question, I did reach out to the executive director of the League of Oregon Cities, but unfortunately I did not get a call back. But to be fair to her, I called her today.
Okay.
So it might have been an unfair expectation to expect a call this quick. As to other cities, when we began researching this last year, I did not see another Oregon city that had such a policy. Today I reached out to listserv and asked the question, and surprised to find that Kaiser had adopted a similar policy to Coos Bay's back in August. Newburgh was interested in following along with what was happening because they were considering such a policy, and I believe Cottage Grove has a administrative policy about its Main Street flags, but not a council policy. But that was a limited response from an inquiry I sent just a few hours ago.
Any other questions for Roger? Anyone? Okay, any other questions for any of the staff? All right, hearing none, it's time for council deliberation or comments, so this would be the time. Who wants to start? So if there's no one willing to start, we just call for a motion and move forward?
I actually did want to ask one other question of Roger. You know, we've heard from a lot of citizens and people who are familiar with our community because they live or work here today. What we haven't taken into account is any problems that this policy may have caused for the city from within with our staff. Has there been any issues raised from our staff with hanging commemorative flags?
There are some staff that raised religious objections to raising the first flag and asked not to be part of that. And then we worked with our insurance provider because that is also an employment issue. And so it did cause some disruption within the workplace.
But you were able to work through it?
We did.
And the staff was comfortable with that?
It was. They were.
All right, comments by anyone?
So, go ahead, Jim.
Drew.
No, you go first.
Why, thank you. My cautious approach, having been in an agency that was being sued when I went in, would be to watch for an opportunity to sign on amicus when a larger city takes this on with a bigger budget, and to set the policy back at the moment, and just watch for the opportunity to support somebody with a bigger budget, because we'll lose a lot more ability than the ability to fly a flag if we lose that much money.
Okay.
So you support a moratorium, is that where you're at?
Moratorium works. Actually, yeah, that would probably be yeah, because somebody's going to get sued before, yeah, we'll have the chance to watch.
So you would extend the moratorium for how long a period?
Oh dear.
Can't you say indefinite?
That's, yeah, pending someone bigger getting sued, that'll be my wording.
Okay. Somebody, who's next?
Go ahead,
Did you want to go, Lucinda?
Stephanie can go.
I just really have a problem with any kind of a threat. And I want to make sure and make it very clear that whatever happens and however I decide on this tonight, it's not because you've stood at that podium and said, we will take this to the nth. This is not an easy topic. It wasn't an easy topic when it came to us originally. We tried to do our due diligence with staff to ensure that we were making the best possible decision to represent the majority of the citizens in this community, and that's the Coos Bay community. But again, I will state this, that there are a lot of people from all over this county that live and work in this community. And, you know, it's never an easy job to sit up here, but that's what we're elected to do.
I will say, sorry.
Also, getting to the point of implementation of a policy and a procedure is not always easy, but for me, it's based on the facts of the matter before us. It may not be what I think or I believe, but it is carefully considered. And while I voted for a policy that I believed at the time would be a fair process for everyone to access, I actually find it a little bit to the opposite at this point. I find it more divisive, and I think we've heard that tonight from both sides. And I could throw out all kinds of cliches at this moment, you know, such as the great thing about this country is that we share certain freedoms, and we do the best we can. We can't make everyone happy every single time that we take a vote, and it was the best resolution at the time. But the bottom line is decision-making is not always easy in this position that we are sitting in. But for me, it is this. I take everything into consideration. I weigh the facts. It isn't always what I feel or I believe, and I don't deal with threats and ultimatums, never have, in work, play, or anything. And it should not be something that, even though it is defensible, should have to be defended at the expense of the taxpayers. I'm sure that the citizens who stood here from Bandon wouldn't want that for their city as well, because they are paying the taxes. And there's always exceptions to my rules. That's the last one. But in this instance, I believe the cost of having this policy, whether it's physical dollars or an absolute stance that might leave someone to believe that I believe something different, it is not inclusive. And I think that it's not the correct policy right at this moment. And so I would be in favor of repealing the policy at this time and watching, as Councilor Farmer stated, to see what's out there.
Okay.
This is like probably one of the most difficult decisions for me personally. I remember when this came to us a year ago, and I couldn't have been more thrilled that the LGBT community approached us about wanting to have a flag on the boardwalk. As a niece of two gay uncles, one who I lost to AIDS, I have always taken a position of advocacy. And as a city councilor, as someone who serves on many boards, I always take very seriously my job not to represent some of the people, but to represent all of the people. And I am so incredibly disappointed that we are having this conversation tonight. As I said, I was very supportive of this policy, but given the times that we live in and the divisiveness in this community, I have every expectation that if we continue with the policy that we have in place, we will have requests to put up other flags, the Confederate flag, the Nazi swastika flag. And if it wasn't supported by council, I have every expectation, as has been indicated this evening, that a lawsuit would be filed. With that said, I cannot in good conscience put the city in a place to be subject to a potential lawsuit, especially knowing that we don't know how much this lawsuit will cost. Again, this is a heartbreaking decision for me because I agree with so many things that were said this evening about giving the LGBT community an opportunity to be celebrated. They are a marginalized group, and the minority, unfortunately, is allowing us to make a decision based on a lawsuit, and that is the only reason I am making this decision, is because I, in good conscience, cannot allow the taxpayers to assume the expense of a lawsuit. So that is all I have to say this evening.
Okay. Somebody else? Anybody else?
Well, Yeah, I'm with Lucinda on this. She basically said what I would like to say. I first voted for this flag policy because I felt like we had a community of people that were marginalized and did not feel welcome in this community. They felt unsafe. I have a son that will probably never move back to this community because he does not feel welcome here. And I just hope, regardless of what happens, that community of people feels welcome, and I thank you for your contributions to our community.
Carmen?
Yep. I better share my sentiment as well. I think we were all in support of the concept of sharing our collective sentiment and exercising our right to governmental free speech. And I was proud that we were, as a group, moving forward to do so. And I still am very proud that we did that. And it is a very difficult thing to watch your sentiment come across as divisive. Just a second. Sorry, my daughter's here. It's hard to think that we can't use this policy as a moment of unity, and it does seem to be creating more divisiveness at this point in time than what we anticipated it to. I also believe that we don't further the cause unless we continue to fight for the rights of all and for diversity and inclusion. However, I also feel very strongly that we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we can't be supportive to the community because we're strapped financially. And I do believe that there are ways that we can help support all members of this community that are outside of just raising a flag. I think that there are many ways that we can do that, and we do that on a daily basis as individuals and as a collective. And I respect all of my fellow council members' sentiment. I share the same thing. I think we're all kind of on the same page that we want to make sure that everybody in this community feels heard, everybody feels like we're being responsible. And at this moment in time, I think I would like to join Drew in a moratorium on the flag policy. Unfortunately, it is kind of against my heart at this moment because I would like to continue to share our collective thoughts as elected individuals. We are here to share our position, but this is causing a lot more division than I anticipated. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah, I got more, but I'd be here all night.
I do also want to say that I'm proud of the turnout. The majority of Coos Bay citizens came out in favor of this, who came present. So I'm proud of that. And I've had people come up to me in public and thank me for this ordinance. I've never had anybody come up to me and complain about it or want to take it to the end with me.
Sarah?
Yeah, I think this is a really disappointing place that we're at, and it's because of a couple individuals and their threats, and I think that's really unfortunate, and I think you should take your ideas back to Bandon. I think that I appreciate what members of our community said, and putting their hearts on the line and talking about the oppression that they felt, and the way that the flag made them feel when they saw it, and the way that it made them feel, that their relatives and their visitors feel when it came here. Jamar, you spoke about the way that this helped further activities across the state as well, and put a focus on the diversity that this tiny rural community embraced. I think that it's brave, and I also don't think that we can put the city in a place where we could potentially lose money that it needs to be focused on a lot of the issues that we also have in the city. So I stand with Drew. I don't think that we should repeal the policy, but rather put a moratorium on it with an eye to join another city in this fight, because I think it's important.
Okay, so that leaves me. So why I originally agreed that the flag policy that we imposed was the right thing to do. I appreciate the comments that we received this evening, and they are definitely heartfelt, and I felt at the time we were doing the correct thing. I'm concerned by keeping it in place, it sets up the city for a potential costly lawsuit. And I think that's at the junction that we're at. If we continue to have a flag policy, this council will have to determine which flags will be flown and which will not be flown, creating a division within our community, which I hate to see. And unfortunately, we've seen some of it here this evening. I've always advocated that everyone be treated equally, and I don't see how that can be done with our current flag policy as it is written. Other cities are suspending the flag policies because of the difficulties in representing the various community groups. A lot of them in California have done that, and there's only a few cities in Oregon at this time that have it. Our city attorney states that the flag policy is defensible against a claim, and it violates the free speech provision of the First Amendment. But that doesn't mean that the city continues with the flag policy, that the city won't face a costly legal challenge, one that we probably not would be able to be covered by the city's insurance, and we would be liable for and couldn't afford. So for that reason, I believe that we should repeal the flag policy instead of a moratorium, as Drew and Carmen and Sarah believe. I think we can always come back if this is brought up in some other aspect from the city, and then reinstitute it according to whatever is passed. No matter what, we're going to have to change this policy, even if we leave it in place or bring it back. So I would suggest to repeal it, and then with the intent of the council, if they feel like it, I think then at the proper time, if something happens to change it, where we can implement something, then we go ahead and do so. And as we've done in other instances, Roger can tell you this, that why change something that we can just take and initiate? We've done that in many ordinances and policies throughout the city. So to have this just sit here and hang over us, and also, I think, puts us in this limbo, I think it's a bad position. So I would suggest repealing it.
Mr. Mayor, with all due respect,
Okay.
I think duly noted, but I also think that Drew's recommendation also makes a statement. And what it says is, yes, we're going to put a moratorium on it, but we're not done with this topic. And we're going to wait for a city, a larger city that has a much bigger budget, because we know it will happen at some point, to help address this issue with us. I think it tells those, it tells people, again, that we're not done. And I think that's an important statement to make.
I second that sentiment.
Well, we have a couple comments, so which way to go? So it's been suggested that it be repealed. It also has been suggested that extending the moratorium.
Nate, is there any consequence to just leave a moratorium running?
You know, you could have, just put a moratorium, and when the council could end the moratorium when it wants to bring it back.
Okay.
I actually don't like being in limbo, so I would make a motion to repeal the flag policy altogether, limiting the use of flagpoles for the flying of government flags.
I'll second.
And under discussion, I want it to be on the record that I am sad and disappointed today, but I think, unfortunately, a moratorium just leaves it in limbo. There is nothing that says that we can't come back with a policy, and I think we need to make a decision one way or the other.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and we had some discussion. Any other discussion?
That is probably the cleanest approach. We can always come back. I don't like token gestures.
I don't think it's a token gesture, and I would be curious if another city would feel like this would help them to make a similar decision.
That's
as well.
fair.
Power in numbers.
Okay.
I agree. I think that being in moratorium shows that we are a city who has attempted this this protocol, and other cities will look to it, ask about our experiences, why we're in moratorium, what happened prior to the moratorium, and might go forward with either crafting their own or maybe joining on with our legal language. And maybe that's the city that is willing to take this on, or ends up in the fight that we can sign on with. I think that it shows that we are interested in this and we didn't just give it up.
Those good points.
I just don't want people to think that I made that motion because I'm not interested in it. I am interested in it. I feel that there are points to both sides, and this policy and this motion is not reflective of my viewpoint for people in our community.
I suppose putting in a moratorium does keep it on the books too, so it won't be forgotten. So.
Are we still open to litigation if it's?
I think if you put it in a moratorium, you're not making any decisions on any flags one way or the other. It's essentially the same thing as repealing it, although you obviously can bring it back.
So you don't think we have any liability for a lawsuit?
I think no, I really don't. I mean, you're just not going to use the policy. You have a right to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Easy enough.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the to repeal the flag policy. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Are you going to be silent there, Lucinda? All right. So that has failed, and so now we need a motion if we want to extend the moratorium. A motion stating that.
I'll move to extend the moratorium to a date to be determined, indefinite, don't know the wording on that one. Revisit in a year.
Second.
Okay.
Oh, Roger had something.
Pardon?
Yeah, I think a date yet to be determined is the proper term.
Date yet to be determined then.
Okay.
Second.
Second to the date to be determined. Okay, is there any other discussion on this?
So by this motion, there is no date to revisit this.
That is correct.
So how would it be, it would just be brought off the table or just brought up by any counselor, or how does that happen?
The council would, it could be put back on the agenda by any one counselor based on your council rules, but it would take a majority of the council to change your decision tonight.
Could I amend my motion to be April as the first meeting in April that we revisit?
Because that was my question. If there is a ceremonial flag that a counselor wants to fly at any time while this moratorium is going on, it cannot be flown if we do not select a date to bring this back up, this policy back up.
No, I
There
believe
are
the
no-
council could, whether you choose a date, you could choose April 1st to revisit the policy and play this meeting over again. Or you could say on a date yet to be determined, and it wouldn't come up until a council member asked to have it brought up,
So one council member can bring it back on?
per your council rules.
Okay, so.
I'll stay to be determined then.
Okay, so, good, because I couldn't support a specific date. But anyway, So to clarify the motion is to make a motion to extend the moratorium to a date uncertain, right?
Yet to be determined.
To be determined. And seconded? Okay, is there any discussion on this, other discussion? I'll just go ahead and say that I'll support this. I still think the correct way to go was the flag policy repealing and then addressing it at that time. But this is second best, and I definitely support my counselor's feelings and decisions on this, so I will also support it. Anyone else? Okay, hearing no other comments, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, one opposed. All right. So I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I want to also thank everyone for their demeanor and respecting everyone else's comments. I appreciate it very much. So thank you so much. I'm sure most of you will be leaving. We still have some other items on the agenda, but you're more than welcome to stay. But we'll take a few-minute recess and I'll grab some coffee and we'll come back.
That was nay, not aye. I know, I don't even know how to do it.
I know, I'm waiting for both of you. I see you.
Oh, man, I have a headache. I just don't like leaving something out there because now it's still good. It's still good. Somebody from the council has to bring it back. I mean, seems like it would be easier to get it on the agenda, especially were you there? I watched it. I was still like, I heard the creator if it's I don't like yes, we did.
I was watching your dogs over foot. I don't know, it was very sweet. I liked it. Yeah, nice sweet. Yeah, what's up front? Yeah, it's
How are you? Good seeing you. Thank you for coming. I'll have to reciprocate. I'm going to have to reciprocate. Okay. Oh, yeah, we will. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Better meeting tomorrow.
I know, and I have a 7 a.m. I have a 7 a.m. It's gonna be a long day.
Yeah, but I mentioned it. About changing it. He says, when he gets the business out of the way.
But I think if we make it a better recording, I think that would be
It's impressive.
I'm doing well, how are you?
I got Russ.
That's true, though.
Yeah, I'm so upset.
I feel like I'm a motorcycle cop from this guy way back in the 80s. That's way more.
I'm not sure if there's
I know.
I'm like, I'm never wearing these caps again.
Thanks for being here. No, no problem. I just
Because he was reasonable, you know.
Yeah. No, it is. It's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking here too, so I totally get it. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you for your comments. Yeah. It's good seeing you. Tell your wife. Hello. Okay.
Yeah, because I can take a 5
See? I'm telling you, Coos Bays. There's something special about it. Yeah, I heard that was exciting. Yeah. He's right there. Yeah. Good. Glad you're getting involved. Yeah. Good seeing you.
Oh, I remember what the housing thing was now. It's the governor's work group. I needed somebody because the governor's transition team is coming.
Okay. I know why I waited on this because they do.
It's all right.
Did you already have it? The meeting?
It's all right. The motions are good.
You needed popcorn. You're hungry now, aren't you?
Okay. Let me
I will. Oh, I don't use that stupid thing. Okay. Next item on the agenda is acceptance of the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. And
Budget calendar.
so, Nicole?
Actually, I think Melissa is going to handle this, and we
Very
would just
good.
clarify that this is the calendar, so it sets out the upcoming budget process.
Yeah, it's a budget calendar. And I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at it. It's quite lengthy. I'm glad I started to panic because I thought at first we were going to have to attend all those meetings. And I thought, oh my gosh. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. The city of Coos Bay undergoes the annual budget process starting in December each year with the adoption of the budget in June. Staff begins preparing the budget document in December to distribute to the budget committee in April so that they have several weeks to review before the budget committee meetings in May. The proposed budget calendar is a detailed timeline of all the steps necessary to prepare, present, and formally adopt the city's annual budget by June 30th as required by ORS. This lays out for staff and what to expect for a budget committee. We've always done this calendar, but it's actually being presented formally this time.
It's pretty straightforward as far as that I've reviewed. So I think it's pretty good. I don't know how everyone else feels.
I'll move to approve the presented 2023-2024 budget calendar.
I guess that states how you feel. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. So any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you. City manager's report, but if I heard correctly, Roger, you sure you don't want to make a report? He said we would forego his report, but.
I think given the hour and the fact that we have another business meeting to occur for the Urban Renewal Agency, I'll forego my formal presentation and write it up and send it to the council via an email.
Okay. Council comments, Carmen, are you there? I think he might be attending to his daughter. So Drew.
Just a general reminder that there's a difference between backing down and waiting for the right moment. That's all I got.
Okay. Lucinda?
I just want to thank everyone who came out tonight to give their comments. And I'm, again, so incredibly appreciative of the thoughtfulness of this council. I think while it was stated that we might not personally agree with the decision that we had to make tonight, it was really about protecting the taxpayers from potential litigation. And I'm just really appreciative of the work that staff did. Nate, thank you for all of your work. Roger, thank you for all of your work. And I'm glad for the moment this is behind us.
All right. Rob?
Well, switching gears, I have the library numbers for November that I will share with you tonight. For November, we had 17,800 items checked out at the library, and of those, only 559 were digital downloads. There were 7,474 wireless internet connections and 6,149 total monthly library visits. There were 20 programs with a program attendance of 553. And this one, every library board meeting I go to, I'm always surprised that for the month of November, there was 119 new cards issued. And I don't know if Sammy's around here, but I think we already have about 20,000 library cards issued. So it always surprises me that that number is consistently over 100 each month. So I think it speaks to the relevance of the library. And on the topic tonight, I think I made my point clear. I agree, it wasn't the decision I wanted to make, but I think it was keeping the city safe. And I'm disappointed we were put in this position. I felt like it was a symbolic gesture towards a community that really needed it. And I'll just say I'm disappointed. That's it.
Okay, Stephanie?
I really don't have anything. I think it's all been said here tonight. And only other thing that I would say is that I love seeing a full council chamber. It means that people are engaged, and that is one of the 4 things that I hoped would happen when I ran for office. And I appreciate all those who came out and took the time to look online and be here tonight.
Sarah?
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. Appreciate everyone that came out, and I too am saddened and disappointed in the decision, but I believe that we have to keep taxpayer fiduciary responsibility at the top. So that's all for me tonight.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank the citizens for coming out and voicing their opinions. It's not always easy, as some of them had stated that this is their first time up here, and it was difficult for them to speak. And so it's nice to see the new ones come out and know that they're listened to, because I want them to make sure and reassure them that they are. I also want to thank the staff for all the hard work. A lot of time and effort went into this and researching it, from our city attorney, city council, city manager, our assistants, and everyone else involved. A lot into it. And I'm always proud of this council because they take it seriously. They discuss some of these items and they come to a conclusion in a situation, and we make that and then we move forward. And one day down the road, we'll bring this back and deal with it again. But, you know, the council has, I'm always admire how they come about, and we seem to come to a conclusion and move forward and get things done. So thank you for all the work you put in and do, and your thoughtfulness on this and many other issues. And I will end with that and then adjourn this meeting, and we'll go into urban renewal.
Okay, and we're going to take just enough time to reset for the Urban Renewal Agency, and then I will call it to order. Please stand by. All right, I always wanted to say that. In all my years of broadcasting, I never got to do that. All right. We are set and ready to go. I think everybody is back. And so I will call to order the meeting of the Coos Bay Urban Renewal Agency. And our first item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any public comments? I don't have anything on my list. All right, then we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent calendar. And how does the agency wish to proceed?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And our next item is consideration to award construction contract for, excuse me, I hit the button and lost my screen there, for the final design for the Front Street Green parking lot. I should know this like the back of my hand, right?
I know. Thank you. The following is in pursuit of completing a portion of Goal 3 in the 2021-2023 council goals. More specifically, this is to develop a parking lot on the property formerly used as a scrapyard located on Front Street between Cedar and Date. So the site was originally identified as having contaminated soils. There have been a variety of reports about how to remediate the contaminated soils. And in April of 2020, a consent judgment was issued to the city of Coos Bay by the Coos County Circuit Court. The consent judgment is intended to protect the city from potential liability for release of hazardous substances at or from the property in return for the city undertaking remediation obligations. So, a remediation action plan, which is a requirement of the consent judgment, has been prepared and approved by Oregon DEQ. Additionally, 30% design plans, which I've attached to the staff report, has been completed. Staff is recommending approval of the task order that is also attached to the Dyer Partnership for final design, to prepare final design plans for an amount of $88,900. This task order would fall under their current miscellaneous engineering services contract. If approved, it's anticipated this project be constructed summer, fall of 2023. Budget implications, funds for this design will come out of the Urban Renewal Agency's 2028 bond series. So if it pleases council, award the final design efforts for the Front Street Green parking lot to the Dyer Partnership for a total amount of $100,000, which includes contingency.
And if we approve this, you promise us that that parking lot will be done this year. Is that correct?
I promise you that the parking lot will be done.
Okay.
Did you catch that?
Will it be done before summer?
We are going, we said fall.
You said
Crystal
summer,
ball.
fall here.
We are fall.
Mhm.
I do want to put out there, a parking lot, I'm assuming we have plenty of asphalt. It's the remediation that I'm a little concerned about. And we still have amenities to that parking lot. Lead times are through the roof. Lead times are 30 and 50 plus weeks out. We're going to get it bid.
Okay.
All the lead paint should hold the soil up. It'll be fine.
Okay.
Did that go on the record? No. Are there any other questions?
I just have like a really random question. I thought we had talked about removing the windmill. Did I see listed on here?
I think that was downtown parking lot.
Correct.
No, we had talked about removing, I didn't catch that. Thank you, Sarah. We did talk about removing the windmill from the parking lot, which I think we can easily do. We just need the parking lot. Correct, Roger?
We're fine with that.
Yeah. Great.
Along those lines, I'm sorry, were you still going?
Well, just on that, it's not going to change anything as far as the design to remove that.
I think we had talked about keeping a spot for some sort of art, but just not having it be the windmill.
I think you're correct.
Okay, we can do that.
Cool, thanks.
So do all the city parking lots have a dumpster area? I was wondering why there was a dumpster.
Part of our funding. So for construction, we're using a sponsorship option. There has to be some sort of stormwater component. And believe it or not, trash cans are a stormwater component. And so it's part of our funding.
Well, and along that, I'm sorry I didn't look at this design enough. I think it's important to have dumpsters along there just to be used. An example is the Empire Boat Ramp. By having that, I know that it's a task for the staff, but it gives a place for people to dump stuff. Otherwise, it gets dumped on the street. So I think it's good. We're just going to have a trash can, not a dumpster. Okay, so What kind of trash can? Are we going to have a belly buster or what?
So it's a centralized trash facility, so it's actually more for the local businesses. That was the intent when we first approached everybody. We are going to have on-site trash cans. Let us know what you'd like to see.
So an example of supply chain issues, the belly buster has been delayed until mid to late February.
They're that popular.
It's either that or it's the electronic components, but we're seeing the same thing. It's far worse for generators. We're seeing those out at 52 weeks.
Well, the good news, if we order them now, we'll have them by fall, correct, for this project?
We are supposed to have some as soon as the end of next month.
Great.
All right. I'm going to be quiet.
I'll move to approve the funding request for the oh, sorry, I bounced. I'm so sorry. I'll move to award the final design efforts for the Front Street Green parking lot to Dyer Partnership for a total amount of $100,000, which includes a contingency.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to award the final design efforts to the Dyer Partnership for a total amount of $100,000, which includes a contingency. Just another question before I move to the actual question on the motion. Does this include like bioswales or some sort of?
So because of the brownfield, it has another stormwater component. It's Filterra. They basically call them trees in an inlet. It's proprietary, but because of the site constraints, the brownfield, it was the only thing that DEQ would approve.
Okay. I wanted to make sure, because we are doing all sorts of improvements down there, that it doesn't look like vegetation has taken over and we haven't been landscaping. So I think now that you mentioned that, I think that is good. All right. Are you ready for the question? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is the approval of request for funding for reconfiguration and remodel of the 911 dispatch center. Chief?
I figured if I was going to come and ask this agency for $250,000, I thought I would step up here and say you guys. So, good evening. I brought to your attention in December at the work session a request for a proposal to reconfigure and remodel our dispatch center, and so I am bringing that back to you at a meeting where you can actually make decisions tonight. So a little background, as I did present to you in December, prior to January 1st, 2021, our North Coos 911 Dispatch Center, which is our primary public safety answering point, had a total of 10 dispatchers and 3 console units to receive and dispatch the calls for service. During this period, the center was providing services for the City of Coos Bay, police and fire, as well as contracted dispatch services for the City of Coquille, police and fire, Coquille Indian Tribe, and Confederated Tribe of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians. The center was previously remodeled about a decade prior, and that remodel allowed for a bathroom facility. However, it was small, it wasn't expanded, and it really fit 3 consoles, and that was it. Starting January 1st of 2021, we actually started dispatching for the city of North Bend, and it also included their police and fire. When that happened, we needed to expand out to accommodate a 4th console in our center, and that became extremely tight to do so. In addition, we added 3 additional employees. Although we didn't have them right away, we are now at a point where we have our additional employees as well. And so we still were working in that very constricted space. Our 4th console is a limited console, and it's not a full console equipped with the ability to move up and down and forward, and it doesn't have all the accommodating space, and it's limited on the monitors. I think most of you have probably had an opportunity to come in and have a tour, and so you know what I'm talking about when I'm explaining it to you. There's also been some talks about a potential need for our center to expand even beyond where we're at now for in the future. I don't know where that where that's going to be. Currently, it doesn't look like we may be going that direction, but I think we need to be prepared for future expansion. The proposal that I would be bringing to you guys would be the ability to expand our center out to accommodate 4 consoles and the ability to accommodate an additional 2, so a total of 6 consoles. And those are full consoles that would articulate up and down and forward and back and be able to provide full dispatch services from all 6 consoles. So that is kind of the meat and potatoes of it. Again, I've already explained most of it to you guys. I didn't want to go through it at all. I am open for questions, but if it does please the council, what we are asking for is approval for the funding request for the configuration and remodel of the 911 dispatch center in the amount not to exceed $250,000. I will say if it does exceed the $250,000, we will have the additional funds come out of our Fund 10, our 911 fund. So I'm open for questions.
Chief, I appreciate you giving us a Cliff Note version of this since we just discussed it last
I
week.
figured you would.
But I did want to just clarify, based on the questions I asked last week, these improvements would basically address all the needs that you have. And if I remember correctly, if we approve this today, you can start work on this in March. And so you'll have that up in short order before summer. Is that correct?
Yes, so this proposal would include all the needs, and also in addition, I should mention that it also will include the new furniture of the consoles that I had just mentioned.
Yeah.
It is our hopes, as we all know, it really depends on supplies, and it depends on availability of contractors and stuff, but it is our hopes to get started immediately as soon as March and have it completed by summer, fall at the latest.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just another question along those lines. Our dispatchers that are using that facility are there for 12-hour shifts?
They are. They're 12-hour shifts, and it's a high-stress job. At times, it can get very stressful, and so the extra accommodations would be a great benefit to them as well.
So even though the probability of needing extra capacity right at this moment may not come to fruition, it's still necessary, if you've toured that facility, to kind of upgrade the configuration in there anyway. It's not very user-friendly for somebody that's sitting there for 12 hours.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, it is. It's very tight. As I mentioned, we are operating 4 consoles, but in a space that was really only intended to operate 3 consoles. So with the added additional calls for service by adding North Bend, we need to have a 4th console up and running, and it needs to be a full console. So yes, it is a necessity for us.
I think I would share that the last time that center was upgraded, I was the project manager and served as the the administrative captain. And at that time, it was designed, the configuration it was, we only had 8 dispatchers.
So that was a long, long time ago. Is that right, Roger?
People were trying to count on their fingers how many years ago that was. I think we came between 15 and 17 years ago.
Yeah.
You got a lot of fingers.
And then that also speaks for the
collective group.
And that also speaks for the the quality of the furniture and stuff that we are putting in that center. I mean, we've gotten 15 to 17 years out of it. It's a big investment, but it's a long-term investment.
Chief, the lighting is an issue in there as well. Are we going to address that?
Yeah, so part of our hopes in this remodel, reconfiguration is also to take a look at what within that environment could help our employees for the longevity of their shifts and just the longevity of their careers. One of the things that's been brought up is different lighting, maybe some different zones where you can dim lighting in certain areas and have brighter lights in other areas that require brighter lights. So we are going to look into all that.
I apologize, I missed the work session due to my day job. How did this get an urban renewal?
It's not uncommon for urban renewal to use funds on to fix up governmental buildings. We've done it with the Art Museum, with the Egyptian Theater, which is a public building, the Sun Museum, the Visitor Information Center, the library, and this building more than once.
I figured it might be by extension because urban renewal to address blight. Blight tends to attract negative behaviors. Kind of need dispatch.
We do.
Are there any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the funding request for the reconfiguration and remodel of the 911 dispatch center in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the funding request for the reconfiguration and remodel of the 911 dispatch center in an amount not to exceed $250,000. The only other, it's open for discussion, but I feel like I forgot to mention this as well, and that is that we didn't want to lose sight. This was originally something that was proposed for the library, and we did not want to lose sight that even though this is coming up now, even if that project were to have moved forward, it still would have been necessary to make this decision on funding and reconfiguration.
That is correct.
Okay.
I think we also asked staff that, it was because it was associated with the library, that if there is opportunities when we do cite a library, if the citizens agree to do so, and there's, we could put the dispatch center there, we wanted the city to stay, or staff to be aware of that, because there would be potential grant opportunities. Is that right, Roger?
That's correct.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Sorry, Carmen, you're back. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Our last item is the acceptance of the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget calendar. And I am assuming this is a continuation of what we did in the council meeting.
Yes, good evening. The URA undergoes the annual budget process starting in December each year with the adoption of the budget in June. Staff begins preparing the budget documents in December for distribution to the budget committee in May, so that they have several weeks to review. The proposed budget calendar provides a detailed timeline of the steps necessary to prepare, present, and formally adopt the URA's annual budget by June 30th as required by ORS. We've always maintained this calendar, but we're presenting it for formal approval.
I'll move to approve the presented 2023-2024 budget calendar.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the budget calendar for 2023-2024 and a second. Any discussion?
It's really going to be awkward if we don't approve this one and we approve the last one.
Good point. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries, and that is our last item of business, so I will adjourn this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency.